We begin a very important week-long special report on cancer. And Dr. Bob Arnott joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Harry. Heart disease has really captured the public's imagination. We eat differently, exercise more, have all kinds of new diagnostic tests and treatments. And because of that, there have been dramatic cuts in heart disease. But cancer, on the other hand, has become the forgotten disease. We do little to prevent and little to diagnose early. Because of that, by the year 2000, cancer will become America's #1 killer.
These are the faces of cancer. They tell a sobering story of a disease that is killing more Americans of all ages than ever before. Hardest hit are the poor. New research from the federal government tells us that poor people are dying from cancer at an alarming rate. They endure greater pain and suffering than anyone else, and they often don't get treatment until their cancer has spread.
I consider this somewhat of an American tragedy and a great American dilemma. We as a country, for example, are the richest country in the world, and we have developed the highest medical technology. Yet we are a country where a significant segment of our population cannot get into health care early enough to save their lives from a lethal disease such as cancer. How are you doing today?
Betty Harrison is one of Dr. Freeman's patients. Her breast cancer was not treated until more than 6 months after it was first detected. She's had 2 mastectomies, and the cancer has spread throughout her body. She is 49 years old.
What would you tell a woman like yourself at this point?
Well, first little pimple you see on your breast, go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And have a mammogram.
And have a mammogram?
Mammogram, yes.
Do you think a mammogram can save lives?
I hope so.
Most of us know someone very close to us who's died of cancer. Consider these facts. 76 million Americans alive today will eventually get cancer. That's 1 out of every 3 people walking along this very street. It will strike 3 in 4 families. This year, 514,000 Americans will die of cancer. That number has increased every year for the past 3 years. By far, the #1 cancer killer in men, and now women, is lung cancer. This year, it will kill 92,000 men and 51,000 women. Next is colon rectal cancer. 30,000 men and 30,500 women will die from it in 1991. And there has been a dramatic increase in breast cancer cases. This year, 44,000 women will die from breast cancer, making it the #3 cancer killer. Why are the numbers going up every single year? Experts say several reasons. First, an increase in the population. Second, people are escaping other diseases only to die from cancer. And third, the changing lifestyles of women.
The entry of women into the workforce has delayed their childbearing, and we're aware that the later in life that a woman gives birth for the first time, the more likely she is to develop breast cancer.
Tough economic times are making matters even worse. Each year, more and more cancer research programs are going unfunded. But there's some good news. An increasing number of Americans are in fact living longer with their cancer. 51%, mostly middle-class whites, are now surviving at least 5 years after their diagnosis. But for many cancer patients and their families, the cost of a longer life in dollars and cents has become overwhelming.
Someone gets cancer and they're inundated with medical bills, with non-medical costs for things like transportation, for child care, for home care. They find it impossible to meet these costs and wind up in a situation where they can be impoverished.
There's another new form of discrimination, Harry, which doctors are calling ageism. That is, when an older American has cancer, doctors are far less likely to treat that person as aggressively as a younger American. And so with the same stage of disease and the same favorable prognosis, they don't do as well. That, coupled with an older American's natural reluctance to get early diagnosis and treatment, dooms tens of thousands of them every single year.
We're looking at this dramatic increase in numbers. Is there any real prospect of being able to cut them down somehow?
Well, there is. There are some very promising new treatments. They will need more money to fund them. We'll see those later in the week. Tomorrow, though, prevention and early diagnosis, enough to save tens of thousands of lives, more than any new cure on the horizon.
Okay, Bob.
Dr. Bob Arnott joins us to continue his week-long series on cancer. Today, you're going to talk about the importance of early detection.
Good morning, Paula.
Good morning.
There's a real fear of early detection that doctors are going to find cancer. And early detection is not dazzling. It doesn't have the same sort of panache as the high-tech weapons that we see. But when individuals avail themselves of early detection, the results can be seemingly miraculous.
All right, Joe. Joe Burns plays golf twice a week. He says he's never felt better. Joe had cancer 3 years ago. It was treated, and now it's gone. Hurry. Phil Hellweg jogs around the track every morning. He's in the best shape of his life. Phil had cancer 3.5 years ago. He treated it, and it hasn't come back. This group of women has had breast cancer over the past 2 years, and today they are free of cancer. All these people are alive and quite well for one key reason: early detection. They took advantage of the best-known way to beat cancer.
I am just so appreciative that this test exists and that I heard about it and signed up for it, because to me, I thought the picture of health, working out regularly and just had no symptoms whatsoever.
Phil Hellweg had prostate cancer. Both he and Joe Burns took a new blood test that can detect the cancer before it spreads. If you get it early, the cure rate is nearly 100%. The experts generally agree that early detection can save many of the 115,000 lives lost each year to cancer of the prostate, colon, breast, and cervix. So who should be screened and how often? All men over 40 should be tested once a year for prostate cancer with a rectal exam and the blood test. Women 18 and older should get a pap smear once a year for cervical cancer, as should sexually active teens. The pap smear has been used for 50 years and is still considered to be the best test in a reliable lab. Colon rectal cancer. For men and women, a rectal exam once a year over the age of 40. A stool blood test once a year for ages 50 and older. And a more detailed exam called a sigmoidoscopy for ages 50 and older every 3 to 5 years.
Okay, here you go with the compression. Yep.
Breast cancer will kill 44,500 women this year. 1 in 5 deaths can be prevented with a simple mammogram X-ray. It is safe and highly accurate. Women should have their first mammogram at 35, then every 2 years between 40 and 49, and every year over 50.
The problem with breast cancer is that we don't know what the cause of it is, so we can't prevent it. The only way that we can treat breast cancer successfully is through early detection. This is a woman who underwent a mammography. She didn't have any masses in her breast that you could feel. However, this picture here shows speckled spots which shouldn't be there. And these spots represent microcalcifications. These microcalcifications cannot be felt, but what they represent is an early breast cancer. This woman has a survival that approaches 100%. Now let's take, for instance, this patient. This is a patient who had a mass that you could feel in the breast. It's a more advanced cancer. Perhaps if she had a mammogram years before, it would have picked up something that was a curable cancer.
So what kind of tests are on the horizon now that can determine that the cancer exists before it metastasizes and spreads throughout your body?
One of the most promising is for ovarian cancer. Now, there are 11,000 lives lost every year to ovarian cancer, and that's because it's almost never found before it spread. This new test is an ultrasound that uses sound waves to look down into the ovaries to try and find those masses before they've spread. That's on the horizon. Another interesting preventive technique for ovarian cancer is that the use of the birth control pill for 3 years or more can cut your risk of ovarian cancer by 50%.
If you just take it for 3 years?
That's correct.
That's the result. Interesting. We continue our week-long series on cancer with Dr. Bob Arnott. Good morning. This morning, what you know about your family history could ultimately save your life.
It really can. It can save your life. That is, heredity this year alone is going to account for about 100,000 cases of cancer. So it makes a big difference. That is, your genetics can determine whether or not you're going to get cancer in about 10% of cases. And once you find out, there are rather dramatic steps that you can take that will drastically cut your chance of getting cancer. What I'd like to do this morning is to have our viewers meet the brave women of the Hare family.
These are the 20 children and grandchildren of Elda Hare. Many of them inherited Elda's soft brown eyes and buoyant sense of humor. Some also picked up her one bad gene, a cancer-causing gene that killed Elda when she was only 44.
In this family, women are born with a 50% chance of getting cancer. Already, 8 family members have had breast or ovarian cancer. This lethal legacy threatens the lives of Elda's 5 daughters every day. They've taken drastic measures.
I had an elective bilateral mastectomy about 1.5 years ago and breast reconstruction. I think that was the right decision. I sleep better at night.
I chose to do prophylactic mastectomies. I took a lot of flack from that. It was a very difficult decision, and then I did decide to go ahead with the prophylactic mastectomies at age 26.
I chose to have bilateral mastectomies instead of just the side that was diagnosed.
I had bilateral mastectomies and 7 months of chemotherapy, and then opted to have the prophylactic oophorectomy or hysterectomy to prevent the ovarian.
I don't look at breasts or ovaries or a uterus making me a woman. That isn't where my femininity is. And my role as a mother is very important. Children need mothers.
My mother's sisters, all who have been diagnosed, only one has survived. And that's what's scary for us, is the cancers always come with a death certificate.
If I was single or did not have a supportive husband or wasn't in a stable marriage, I couldn't have gone through with this surgery. But to have a husband say, your life is more important than your breasts, and be fully supportive of that decision, that was the only way I could have gone through the surgery.
I'm not saying everyone with cancer, a little bit of cancer in their family, should go have their breasts amputated. But you have to look at your family tree and see what's coming at you.
We all want to live to be 80.
Yeah.
But the reality may not be there. And so we're going to do everything we can. And if you followed any one of us in a given day, you'd probably find that we never walk, we run.
I don't think that our family's worse off than what other people have. That's life, you know. Trials and tribulations are a part of this life. Unfortunately, my children are more aware of cancer than I'd care for them to be, because children shouldn't be brought up with cares and worries.
Life is so ironic sometimes. My ovaries and breasts, the part of my bodies that made it possible to conceive and nourish my babies, now threaten my life. They also threaten my children's future, a possibility of growing up motherless.
Now, each one of these women took drastic measures. That is, each of them had both of their breasts removed. Some had hysterectomies. But it has decreased their chance of getting cancer by fully 50%. Now, the first step here for anybody is to have a family history taken. These can be done at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska, and this is what one would look like. You have 5 different generations that are represented on this chart. These are the different generations, down through here to the bottom.
Right.
Males would be the squares, females would be round like this, and each one that is colored represents a cancer. Now, let's suppose that you have an individual down here in this generation, this person here. They don't know that there's any cancer in their family because, gee, mom and dad don't have cancer. And yet, look, just the number of cases that we see here is enough to warn this person, in the Hare family, there are 50 cases of cancer. So it's the chart that makes the difference. If Gilda Radner had known she had this kind of a history, she might have taken much more drastic measures much earlier.
So if you have a chart drawn up and you find that 2 generations ago there were lots of cases of cancer, would you take the kind of drastic action that the Hare family did, just to feel safe?
It depends on 2 different factors. Number one, how many cases do you have? 5 sort of the dividing line, 5 or more. And second, what kinds of cancers? So if you have ovarian, breast, colorectal cancer, which are hereditary cancers, that's when you want to take action.
This morning, Bob joins us live from one of the sites of the National Cancer Institute's Information Service Centers. This one at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center right here in New York. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Paula. All this week, we have had hundreds of calls every day from patients who have incurable cancers. Now, half of all cancers can't presently be cured, but that doesn't mean that these patients should be without hope. The future may be here today at the National Cancer Institute. Hector Delgado was like thousands of other cancer patients. All conventional treatments had failed. He had run out of hope.
They told me that they could not take me in there, and they would give me 3 months only to live.
3 months later, Hector walked out of the hospital with no sign of his kidney cancer.
thanks to a new experimental treatment. This young man, who asked us not to use his name, was also staring at an early death from lung cancer until he too got a new experimental treatment. 3 months later, most of his cancer is gone.
Well, I've got realistic hope for the future.
And so do thousands of other patients, thanks to these revolutionary treatments that use the body's own built-in weapons to fight cancer.
I think the treatments we've developed so far have demonstrated that it is possible to use the body's immune system to treat cancer.
Dr. Rosenberg is the pioneer of what he calls immune therapy. He works in the research labs of the giant National Cancer Institute in Maryland, the world's largest facility devoted strictly to experimental cancer treatments. The red liquid in these bags may represent hope for millions of people with incurable cancers. The bags contain immune cells taken from a patient's own cancer. They are treated with the drug interleukin-2, which transforms them into billions of super killer cells. They're injected back into the body to find and destroy cancer cells.
What we're trying to do is use every scientific tool we have available to solve a problem, a very desperate problem for patients in pain and suffering from an incurable disease, cancer.
An estimated 1 million people will be diagnosed with cancer this year. 500,000 will die. Right now, conventional treatments, radiation, surgery, and chemotherapy cure half of all cancers, creating a desperate need for new treatments.
A man like this, a young man like this with what otherwise would be a fatal cancer, what hope would he have without any of these biologic treatments?
Well, there are no effective treatments now for patients that have malignant melanoma that's spread throughout the body. It's one of the kinds of cancers that's resisted conventional forms of treatment such as chemotherapy.
In another breakthrough, 10 melanoma patients on this ward will make history as the first cancer patients in the world to be treated with gene therapy. Their immune cells have been redesigned by inserting powerful new cancer-fighting genes directly back into them. These newly enhanced cells seek out the cancer and kill it.
We're trying to genetically modify those cells, that is, create a kind of cell that a patient has never had before, that in fact has not existed before in the course of human evolution.
Now, Dr. Rosenberg's new treatment is not going to be widely available until it's proven. However, there are hundreds of other experimental treatments that are available today for patients who have incurable cancers. You can find out about these cancers by calling this number. It is 1-800-4-CANCER. Now, this is one of the most sophisticated medical information lines in the world. These are all cancer specialists here who can reach doctors, experts, experimental treatment programs. You can reach them by calling this number now. We will be back in another hour to find out what kinds of calls we're getting and what kind of information is being given out.
We're going to check back in with Dr. Bob Arnott. He's at a National Cancer Institute Information Service Center. This one's here at New York at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Good morning, Bob. What kind of calls have they been taking over the last couple of hours?
Well, Paula, about 3/4 of the calls have been about experimental trials. The other quarter have ranged from prevention to treatment of conventional cancers, and it's important to emphasize that a large percentage of Americans are not getting state-of-the-art treatment for their conventional cancer. So if you have questions about experimental trials or prevention or state-of-the-art treatment, you should call the number we're at right now, which is 1-800-4-CANCER. Now, one of the cancer information specialists here is Patricia Keeler. Patricia, you've taken a number of calls this morning. Can you tell me a little bit about them?
Yeah, actually all of the calls that I've taken have been about clinical trials. One was about a woman whose brother had cancer. It was a pretty advanced cancer, but she wasn't sure of the primary source of the cancer. So she needed to get a little more information before I could really help her.
Any of these, can you help the patients in terms of finding clinical trials?
Well, I had another woman whose husband has an advanced prostate cancer, and he was looking for experimental treatments, clinical trials. So I took information from her, and I think I'll be able to find some clinical trials that he might be a candidate for.
Great. Now, Paula, the way they're going to do that is through what's called the PDQ Computer Information System. This is the heart of this service. It's available in libraries, doctors' offices, and here at the National Cancer Institute hotline, 1-800-4-CANCER. What Patricia would do with this particular cancer is to look it up. That is, look up general information, press return here, and up should come treatment by body system. I'll go into this, and it will say where is our cancer here? Let's say it's number 12. Then there will be a long list of different kinds of experimental programs that are available by location so that Patricia will be able to tell her where to go and make the connection between a medical center, a doctor, and a patient.
You call that number, Bob. Give us an idea of how long it might take to get some of that information out of the system.
Well, it literally took just the few seconds you saw there for me to be able to get into the system, find a clinical trial, and give the patient the information. These calls average about 15 minutes, so there's a tremendous amount of information. This is not a hotline. These are trained cancer information specialists, and this is the most sophisticated cancer information system in the world.
Now, when it comes to the experimental treatments, people have a lot of questions about the risks involved with those treatments. Will they be able to get that kind of information, in addition to the doctors who are performing those kind of treatments?
Well, Paula, they really square away with the patients. They let them know that there are risks involved here, what those risks are, that they do not have to go into these trials if they do not want to. It's free choice. But I should say that even though there are risks for patients who have incurable cancers, there is some hope here, depending on the stage of the trial. Once you're at stage 3 trials and they're in wide use, there's some real hope that this may work.
All this week, Dr. Bob Arnott has been reporting on cancer in a series of special reports. And this morning, Bob's here with one man's remarkable story. Good morning.
Good morning, Paula. This is the story of a modern American hero and a man I'm honored to know. He's a man who combined the best of what medicine could do for him with what he could do for himself to beat the odds.
Bob Stone lives life to the fullest every day. He tends to the garden at his home in North Carolina. He bikes along the winding roads of the Blue Ridge Mountains. And he hikes across its scenic trails.
How y'all doing up here?
Great. Bob Stone and his wife Jeannie have a wonderful life. A life they were determined to keep on living and enjoying, even after doctors told Bob he'd never survive kidney cancer. That was 1 year ago. Bob Stone has beat cancer.
People need to know that cancer is not the death knell, but it can be beaten.
His extraordinary story is about the wonders of modern medicine and the powers of the human spirit. Bob was treated at Duke University Hospital with an experimental therapy that uses the body's own immune system to fight cancer.
He had a massive kidney tumor within his kidney, and this had unfortunately already spread to his lungs. His prognosis in this particular situation is very grim. As you can see now, there is no evidence of cancer anywhere within his lungs. We would call this a complete remission.
The Stones combine all the available weapons: medicine, exercise, nutrition, prayer, and love in their all-out assault on cancer.
I decided I need to form a team, we called the team the Buffaloes, and the reason we picked the Buffaloes was because it was a dying breed, but it's making a comeback now. We sent out bumper stickers that said R.T. Stone Buffaloes, undefeatable champs. I asked my friends and my family to send pictures of themselves, to send me funny stories. So when you came into my room at Duke, you couldn't help but smile. So my immune system never shut down. I mean, it was going gangbusters from the beginning because I had hope from so many people.
I was continually trying to give him energy in a lot of ways. I believe that we can transfer energy to each other, especially with touching.
Bob and Jeannie embraced many of the thoughts of the noted author and surgeon Bernie Siegel, who has helped thousands of cancer patients. His message: a positive attitude helps healing.
That's what Bob is doing. He's a great teacher. He's a sage, a guru. I don't care what label you want to give him. And people will flock to him to learn, how do you deal with adversity and how do you find joy in this moment?
In an effort to stay healthy in mind and body, the Stones believe that good nutrition is essential, that a low-fat diet and lots of fruits and vegetables keep the immune system strong.
That's good.
Daily exercise is also part of the program. Bob Stone says he's never felt better in his life. He is convinced that he got cancer for a reason, and that is so he may reach out to others.
A lot of good healing in these hills. I have the ability to now to talk to somebody I've never met before and talk with them with love and conviction and tell them my story and tell them that if I can beat it, here's some of the things that I've done that might be helpful to you, so you will be able to beat cancer.
Bob Stone has been free of cancer for 1 year and requires no further medical treatment.
I guess we all can learn from Bob's story, but when you look back over everything you've done all this week long, what is it that you want us to walk away with?
Number 1, don't smoke. We wouldn't have rising cancer rates if it weren't for smoking. Number 2, take early diagnosis seriously, as serious as we take our cholesterol and blood pressure levels. That would cut cancer deaths by tens of thousands. 3, if you have cancer, make sure it's state-of-the-art. Many Americans, tens of thousands, do not get state-of-the-art cancer treatment. You can make sure you do by either going to a comprehensive cancer care center or calling 1-800-4-CANCER.
Many of us hear the word cancer and we think it's something that happens to someone else. Cancer won't happen to us. But if you're a woman, there's a 1 in 10 chance you will face breast cancer at some point in your life. Both our guests today have. Susan Winn of Overland Park is a registered nurse, a mother of 4, and a marathon runner to boot. She has a family history of breast cancer. At the age of 32, she underwent a double mastectomy. Ann Hargrove of Kansas City is a freelance writer and a mother who discovered breast cancer at the age of 41. She underwent a mastectomy as well. Both women have now written about their experiences in books that are honest, inspiring, and often funny. Susan Winn's book is Chemo and Lunch, One Woman's Victory Over Hereditary Breast Cancer. Ann Hargrove's book is Getting Better, Conversations with Myself and Other Friends While Healing from Breast Cancer. If you'd like to call in with questions, the number is 722-2907. How did you, Ann, detect your breast cancer? How was it detected?
Well, a nurse who was examining me for a pap smear discovered it. I have very small breasts, and it wasn't a normal kind of breast cancer. It filled the whole breast.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I was doing...
There wasn't one small lump then?
There was no one small lump. Right? The feel of the breast changed. And I just didn't realize it.
Would it have been something you would have detected yourself?
I think now I would detect it myself because I would know that if a breast really, if the whole thing began to feel so much different, then I would know that I should. But I had had it checked a year before.
Okay. So. Susan, how about you? How was yours detected?
I myself could feel a thickening on the side of my left breast. And
so you went into the doctor?
Went into the doctor, and I actually had 4 mammograms. And with my cancer, mammogram never did pick up the cancer, which is
that's kind of frightening.
It is, and for me being a nurse, I thought I knew several things, and what I learned later was mammograms do have a 30% error. 15% will show a cancer that's not there. 15% will not detect a cancer. So we were a little bit fooled by the mammogram. So it wasn't until I finally found a doctor that took the family history seriously and said, you've got to get this biopsied because you are feeling something.
If you had both detected the difference in your breast or lump earlier, would different treatment options have been available?
Definitely for me.
Okay.
I mean, I think probably they would have been able to remove something that was small. By the time they found out that it was malignant, I had the whole breast and most of the lymph nodes removed under that arm.
Susan?
I don't think I would have done anything differently. I would have gone.
Let's take some calls. We have some viewers with some questions. Hi, you're on the air. You have a question?
Yes. Hello?
Yes.
My question is, my wife had to undergo this surgery, and I tried to tell her before that I didn't think that she should feel any less of a woman because she's the same woman to me. Did these ladies go through that, and how did they deal with it?
I wasn't married at the time, but I had a lot of feelings like this to deal with. What I finally decided was